Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews, coming at you online and in print format at nicktiffany.com, in audio format wherever you get your podcasts, and even in video on YouTube, Reels, TikTok, anywhere you have social media, you could pretty much find us. Today, we are talking about a new horror adjacent film, I would say. I've seen a lot of chatter about this one online. It was definitely one I've been curious about, if only for the leading actor and to see what could come of this. So today we're talking Late Night with the Devil. The film stars David Desmalchian, who you might know as Polka Dot Man from the Suicide Squad movie. You might know him from bit appearances in Dune and Prisoners, all the way back to The Dark Knight, his first film role. He wrote a really great article about it, just talking about years of struggling with addiction and different substance abuse and different things, and Chris Nolan kind of giving him this shot to play one of Joker's henchmen. And it was just a really cool article because I think when you see Desmalchian in movies, you recognize him, you recognize the face and the profile. And it's been really cool to see him working so hard behind the scenes in Hollywood and start ending up in incredible films. Denis Villeneuve had him in Prisoners and in the Dune movie. A lot of people I think are picking up not only on his talent, but on everything that he can kind of bring to the table. And so it's bizarre that in 2024, this is his first leading role. I had to double check. I had to look up a few times. I don't know. It's just weird. It's cool. So I'm super stoked for him because he's fantastic in this movie. And this movie is super unique in the sense that it's kind of playing off a fictitious late night talk show in the 70s called Night Owls, hosted by David Desmalchian's character, Jack Delroy. Delroy is a late night host who's kind of been vying for that top spot. He's been fighting to compete with Johnny Carson, take over the number one spot as a late night host in America. Hasn't necessarily happened yet. And the way that the film kind of starts and presents everything is we're taking a look at the lost studio tape of this Halloween episode of the Night Owl show. Something went horribly wrong on this evening's episode. Supernatural, paranormal, whatever it was, it never aired. So we're kind of getting this voiceover piped in as we're watching a little bit, getting caught up with the times, understanding this role of late night television and coming into your home, what audiences are starting to see for the first time in the 70s as well, whether it's evil across the world, different horrors, just all sorts of different stuff. It's a really interesting start to understanding that role of a late night host, the importance that you could play. And immediately you can tell Delroy at least comes off as very humble, very appreciative to be in your homes every evening, invited in there to have you watch and laugh, hopefully. And so you kind of start to piece a little background information on him together. You've got this potential old men's fraternity kind of group out in the woods that he may or may not be part of at one point. He was married to a beautiful, successful woman, though unfortunately she eventually passed due to lung cancer. And it's interesting because they talk about how, bringing her on the show was the highest rated show he probably ever had. Still couldn't quite get him to where he wanted to be competing with Carson. But as his deal is sort of nearing renewal, as it feels like this might be our last shot to get to that number one slot, Jack has this idea to say, hey, for this Halloween episode, I think we should bring on different spiritualists, mediums, paranormal people, maybe even this woman who claims that this young girl she knows can speak to the devil or has some sort of demon possessed in her. And so the rest of the film kind of follows this pseudo found footage, studio audience stuff, and then kind of this black and white following it behind the scenes almost. First and foremost, I mean, they really, really did an incredible job in the production design, because not only do you feel like this is a practical 70s set, from the colors of the wall to the different I don't know, the rug styles, the chairs, the carpets. I mean, so many different things that they paid a really fine attention to detail for that, at least to me, stood out and felt like, okay, this is definitely how this would have looked. All the little sliding doors. You got the band over there with your I know he's not an MC. I'm forgetting what the right word is, but I always think of Jimmy Fallon and Higgins. Whoever the host's right hand man, there to kind of like rib him a little bit and give him some one liners and zingers. So the setup is just money. It looks so convincing, and the way that it's kind of shot too, rather than being widescreen, at least for most of the movie, is it is kind of that 4:3, a little more squared off, kind of like your old television sets might have been. So there's just little things here and there like that like really keep you engaged with the story, and it makes you feel like, all right, I'm watching this hidden broadcast. I'm part of the studio audience almost. I real quick just wanted to bring this up just in terms of production, because I've seen chatter online, and I'm sure some people may mention it. It's been a weird little bit of controversy online surrounding the film. There's a brief moment a couple times where they use like a skeleton graphic, like a, we'll be right back type deal. And when the trailer for this film ended up online months ago, there were people who were kind of like, well, this looks like an AI image. That ability to slow every frame down at home obviously makes it a little easier to notice some things like that. So for months now, it's kind of circulated, and it's like, this kind of looks like AI, because why did the skeleton have like 6 fingers and they're not drawn properly, and the pumpkin heads kind of look weird. And the more you look at it, the more you are kind of like, all right, yeah, like I guess I can tell that is AI. And the filmmakers kind of addressed it and talked about it. It was like, well, we used AI to kind of like start with the model, the base image, and then we were going to go from there, and we've edited it and tweaked it. A lot of people are really pissed off because they're like, hey, this is how it starts. It snowballs. They just include a little bit like this. And then before we know it, we've got full AI scenes. I can understand some of that argument. There's also people who are like, we need to boycott this film, make sure it makes no money. This is horrible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, having seen the movie, it's gone in a flash. It's not even like a 3-second, we'll be right back. I mean, it's like, boom, one shot, done, gone. You would hardly notice it if you were actually in the theater watching it. Until you were at home on the internet looking at it, you wouldn't have noticed it. So yeah, do I think they could have just redrawn the image like people have online in a matter of minutes and just used that? Yeah. Should they have done that? Probably. The fact that they didn't, though, I'm not losing sleep over it. And again, I understand the argument, but I think people need to cool it just a little bit on like, we got to boycott this movie and everything. Because that they worked incredibly hard on this film. I think you can see it in every frame on that set through the performances. It's just a really unique movie, truthfully. And the idea of bringing out these different guests, each of whom kind of has their own different spiritual connection to something, but also doubting one another's abilities almost as well. There's this whole idea of, watch what happens live. The studio audience has never seen occult, Satanist type stuff on a late night show. The whole idea of what they're doing is really risky as well, because you are stepping into families' homes and talking about some pretty dark stuff that I'm sure the government, religious people, nobody wanted to be discussing this on air. It's very taboo stuff at the time. I'm sure it still is taboo. But I don't know. I don't want to go too into detail with this story, because I think the more you kind of unravel from what happens, and the more you start to blur the line of like, okay, what is real and what's not. I mean, the film just kind of immerses you deeper and deeper, and there's just many, many brilliant moments, whether it's with actual prosthetics, different real effects, kind of paired with some different visual effects. There's a lot of really cool, really creepy stuff in this movie that they do really, really well. This is one I had to travel a little bit further to see it, so I think it's going to be going into a wider release in the next week. Definitely worth the watch. I think especially in theaters, it really is a cool experience, feeling like you're a part of this broadcast, feeling like you actually have stumbled on something that feels like it shouldn't be seen. There's a moment where I kind of felt like when I was watching Nope, and there's that whole scene with the monkey at the beginning who kills multiple people on the TV show. Sometimes there is that sense of dread of just like, oh man, like things are going to get bad, aren't they? Or like, oh, everyone thinks it's so well intended that nothing could go wrong. And it does, of course. And so, there's just some really awesome bursts of violence and different things too, where you're just completely caught off guard. And as I mentioned, they just do such a good job blurring the line of, okay, I think this was real. I think some of this could be. Much like Jack in the audience, you're kind of like, okay, I don't have a way to explain that. So that's a little freaky, but kind of keep that in the back pocket and move forward. And okay, there's something else happening now that's really intriguing. The film was directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns, who also wrote the film. I'm not familiar with their works. This kind of seems like the largest thing that they've done, maybe as far as distribution goes. But I'm all in on what they choose to do next. This is just, like I said, a really unique horror project. I don't know if everything totally works by the end. I think they could have allotted, based on the story that they're telling and the way that they're taking the narrative, I think if we'd spent maybe 10-ish minutes more with Jack and maybe a little bit more kind of diving into some of his background, I think where they kind of take the film might have paid off just a little bit more. The ending sort of gets a little confusing. Not that it was lost on me, but it was just kind of like, they were 90% of the way there. They didn't quite stick the landing, but the ending certainly is worth talking about, and is certainly, it'll make your head spin for sure. That's all I'll say about that. So like me, if you're a fan of David S. Malshin, definitely check this film out. Show him some support. Continue to support independent film. Be wary of AI and oncoming images like that, but have some sensibility as well. Thanks again for listening, you guys. You can find NT Movie Reviews on all social media networks, podcast platforms, and even on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.